Christmas 2014. What's the message? In the interview, the head of the German Lutheran Church, Bishop Heinrich Bedford-Strohm.
Bishop Bedford-Strohm, it is Christmas time in Germany and we're looking forward to the year to come. And today you and I are going to be talking about the role that your church plays in German society. And I'd like to begin with the following question. How important is religion in Germany?
I think it is still quite important. Of course, there are people leaving the church also. There are also people who are entering the church. We have both phenomenons. But I think the voice of the church is still very important. I can really tell that from politics, from public life, there's a lot of demands for the church to speak up in certain issues. For example, how do we deal with the end of life? How do we deal with military violence? Questions of social justice. People who have public offices, they want to talk to us. They need orientation. People in politics don't always have the answers. And a lot of the questions that are discussed publicly are questions with a deep ground in ethical issues. And I think the churches are still, nowadays, as much as in earlier days, still places where those ethical, those moral questions are reflected.
I never thought I would hear a senior German bishop saying to me that the church is still quite important. Fascinating remarks. Let's talk about the role of your church. You have been quoted as saying you want to be a public church. What does that mean?
Public church means that church and Christian religion is nothing that is just in small circles and that is separated from society. Public church means that the tradition of the gospel, the Christian tradition, is something very relevant for public life. I have already talked about the questions that are discussed in public, and the church has something to say to these things.
Let's talk about one of those questions specifically. For example, the whole questions of the question of refugees and asylum seekers here in Germany. It's a much talked about topic. More and more people are trying to get to Europe, trying to get to Germany, seeking asylum, looking for refuge here, which is a Christian sort of a word. Meanwhile, there's open hostility in many quarters in Germany towards asylum seekers. What contribution can your church make to that debate?
I think that the church has to make very clear that the Christian tradition is very intimately linked to the question of refuge. Christ has said, I have been a stranger and you have received me. That means in the face of refugees, we see the face of Christ. That's a very definite point in Christian religion. It's nothing, not a side point. It's something that's in the central, that's a central theme of Christian religion. So we as a church, I think we really have the duty to make very clear that when people who have experienced a lot of violence, tremendous, terrible things, that these people who come to our country really deserve to be received in dignity. We have countries in the Near East who have millions of refugees.
Terrible suffering.
Terribly suffering, and also people, countries who receive a lot of refugees. And I think we are so blessed in Europe, and also in Germany especially, we are so blessed with wealth that we should really share and we should really receive people.
That's an important point, of course, but there are many people who would ask, yes, Germany is a prosperous country, but does that mean Germany should take in everybody who comes here and wants to seek a better or a safer life? Or can Germany turn anybody away? Because this turning people away is a very un-Christian thing to do, specifically at this time of year.
That is a very difficult question. I think it is clear that not everybody can come to one country, and that is also not the case. There are many countries that receive refugees. I've already talked about those countries who receive much, much more than us, millions of people, but we have a clear legal procedure. It is not everybody can come here. It is clear that whoever comes here must undergo this legal procedure.
That means what you are saying,
yes,
Bishop, that means that you are saying, yes, we can turn people away. We do turn people away, and we must turn people away.
That possibility is there, of course. And we as churches, we see our role indeed primarily in advocating people to have a fair procedure here. Mm-hmm. But if we underline the fairness of the legal procedure, we include saying that the legal procedure has to have consequences. So it is clear that the possibility of sending people back in cases where the basis for asylum is not really there, that is part of the legal procedure. And it must happen in dignity. That's, I think, really important.
Dignity is the important word.
Yes.
Yeah. Let's talk about another area that's linked to that, because a lot of people are on the move in this globalized world, and the globalized economy is a scary place for many people these days, even in a prosperous country like Germany. What vision does your church offer for social and economic justice?
Well, one of the most important features of the church is that it is global. Our ecumenical relationships, our ecumenical network goes all over the world. We have 16 partner churches in all continents, and the German churches in general, they have networks all over the world, which means that when we talk about economics here in Germany, we need to introduce the perspective of our brothers and sisters in other parts of the world into our own political and economic thinking. That's what I'm doing as a bishop almost every day.
The way that Pope Francis has been doing that, and I know that you admire his work in that respect, recreating his church almost as a church of the dispossessed.
Absolutely. I very much welcome the impulse of Pope Francis in this case to make clear that Christian religion includes the biblical option for the poor, which means then when I talk to bankers in Germany, to leaders of enterprises, to CEOs here in Germany, or to political representatives, I introduce a perspective of those who live in countries that live in poverty. And we need to judge our own decisions here about trade relations, for example, and negotiations. We need to judge them from a certain criterion, and that is, will it foster the situation and better the situation of the poorest in this world. So it's negotiations on trade. It's not just a matter of German interest, it's a matter of humanitarian interest.
While we're talking about international affairs, I'd like to ask you about there's a growing debate in Germany about Germany redesigning its foreign policy, taking on a more assertive role, possibly joining in more military missions abroad. What's your position on all that?
I think that primarily we have to make very clear that development is nothing that can be done with military. Development is the basis to overcome violence.
But you have advocated sending arms, for example, as the German government is doing to northern Iraq.
Well, when I was in northern Iraq and talked to the refugees there, I have said very clearly that these people must be protected against the murder of the IS militia. And what I have said is that we need the United Nations to finally act in terms of a police force, as we have it in every national context. And so what we really need is the United Nations to establish a protection zone in northern Iraq to protect all those people who would be killed otherwise.
So whatever weapons will mean, we're talking about military protection for people who need
military protection. And if the Peshmerga act now in protecting these people, it can never be the solution. The United Nations are the born actor for that. So all the necessity of giving weapons to Peshmerga is not really any solution, and it also, of course, creates a danger of having these weapons in the wrong hands afterwards. But we are in a dilemma. Violence is never good. Violence can never be blessed. But at the same time, we cannot just watch when all these people are murdered.
You're a very modern, very committed bishop, but it's fascinating to hear your views on politics. I am reliably informed as a modern bishop, that you, more than any other bishop, use Facebook and Twitter and so on and so forth. What are you looking for there, and what are you finding?
Well, I simply want that we as a church are present where people are, where people spend their lifetime. And the internet is a very relevant place where people spend a lot of time. So I want us to be there. And what I do on Facebook is simply I tell about all the great things that we do as a church. For example, when we as German churches are blessed with a good amount of money that we get, I want people to know that we are doing great things with this money. I want the people to understand what a wonderful message this old tradition of the Christian tradition is in the gospel. I want them to see how relevant it is in everyday's life. I'm simply very convinced of it.
You know what occurs to me? I suddenly wonder whether, with your enthusiasm for modern communication, do you actually still send old-fashioned Christmas cards, or do you send Christmas-themed text messages?
I actually send old-fashioned Christmas cards.
Good for you.
There is a good meaning of handwritten letters. I treasure that.
You've talked about your church's message. Yeah. What about you as a person? It's the time of year where people sort of come up with New Year's resolutions. What might your New Year's resolution be?
Well, my most important New Year's resolution is getting time and really reserving time for myself and for my family, for spirituality.
You're a famously hard-working bishop.
Well, I wouldn't say hardworking. I just enjoy meeting people and writing and preaching, and I simply enjoy it. But I also know very well that all this work is not possible if I'm not happy in my relationships, with my sons, with my wife, with the people that are important to me.
Bishop Bedford-Strohm, it's been wonderful talking to you. Wonderful meeting you today. Thank you very much for joining us on Deutsche Welle.
Thank you very much.